The gentleman with me in this segment of Composite is Dr. Roy Peter Clark. He's an English teacher at Auburn University, and he recently wrote an article for the New York Times that's been picked up nationwide. It's called Infectious Bronchitis. The thesis of Mr. Clark's article is that he doesn't like the way I talk, and he thinks people should talk in their native tongue. Mine happens to be Southern English. Dr. Clark, what about that?
Well, most people who have read my article, and it's gotten some national attention, presume that I'm from the South, but I'm actually a New Yorker, and I came to Montgomery to teach at Auburn University at Montgomery last September. When I came down, I was traveling through the Southeast. I noticed something which shocked me greatly, which is that newscasters like yourself who are from the South seem to have abandoned the dialect of their homeland for what I call the cracked twig dialect, which we call broadcast English, the type of things type of language that Walter Cronkite uses on the air. I studied it a little bit, and I thought about it a little bit, and I'd always been kind of in love with Southern English. I remember as a boy listening to Mel Allen broadcast the New York Yankee games in the Southern dialect, and I thought it was mellow and lyrical. And I wondered why newscasters who were from the South worked so hard at getting rid of this beautiful dialect. I looked into it a little further, and much to my amazement, I found out that people like Dan Rather, Howard K. Smith, and a host of other well-known, prominent newscasters in America.
Do you think you might mention somebody from NBC along this line? So,
how about David Brinkley?
That's fine, thank you.
And of course, I thought about it a little more. I talked about it with some of the students in my class, and then I tried to figure out exactly where on television, in what way television presented the Southern dialect. And of course, there are certain categories of people who are allowed to speak Southern English. They include athletes, beauty contest winners, people like Gomer Pyle and the Beverly Hillbillies, faith healers, used car dealers. As a result of this, it seemed to me that television was presenting a kind of parody of what Southern English really was, and was creating a terrible stereotype which I think really affects the way the entire nation looks upon the South.
Now, don't you think that there's a possibility that people from other parts of the country who hear a Southerner automatically assume that stereotype and automatically distrust anything he says? Not necessarily distrust, but automatically put it into a context of some sort of Southern bias, just like a Northern bias or a Midwestern bias.
Yes, but it's a fact that what we call broadcast English in America is closer to Northern English than it is to Southern English in terms of its sound, its pronunciation, and the vocabulary that's used in the dialect. As a result of that, I think that Southerners become slighted. They become ridiculed. I think if Americans distrust Southern English, it is because television has taught them to do so. And I think that I've made a couple of proposals which I would just like to repeat. And that is, first of all, I don't think that university broadcasting schools should promulgate the leveling of regional dialects. I think our regional dialects are worth preserving, whether the speaker is from New England, from the Midwest, from the Southwest, or from the Southeast. I think that people should simply be taught to speak clearly, and that we should strive to attain regional dialects. There's no reason in the world why a newscaster can't sound like Jimmy Carter or one of the Kennedys, for example.
Speaking in regional dialect is fine if you happen to be within a region. But when you're on network television, when you're speaking to a national audience, it's not important for that audience to know where that reporter is from. In fact, it's better if he were completely anonymous. Why do you think he should retain that regional dialect?
Well, I think that, I know that historian Daniel Boorstin criticizes television because he says that, that television has made us lose a sense of our own history and a sense of our own past. And I think that the anonymity which television broadcasters presume that their audience, it seems to me that when newscasters on a national basis broadcast in this unidentifiable language, they presume that their listeners are somehow all the same, without background, without distinctiveness. And I think that, as I suggested, one of the reasons that our democracy has managed to survive is because we've made the best of diversity, whether it happened to be religious diversity or diversity in racial or ethnic background, or language diversity. It seems to me there's nothing at all wrong with including Southern English, including all our regional dialects within the framework of the broadcasting of the news, whether it be regional news or national news.
Now, what were you saying about me?
Well, I think I would gather that I would make a guess that very few of your listeners know that you're from Mississippi. And the reason for this is because I think, like all newscasters in America who are trained to remove their regional dialects and to take on what we call now broadcast English, I think WSFA TV News perhaps needs to restore Southern English to its rightful place. It is as meaningful and as healthy a dialect as any in America, and when you remove that dialect for reasons of broadcast, you are speaking in a language which is essentially different from approximately 85% of your listeners. And I hope that some of your listeners might react either favorably or unfavorably to my comments about the dialect.
Well, Dr. Clark, thank you very much. And that's the view of the preservation of the Southern dialect from the point of view of a Northerner who has been transplanted to Alabama. And Composite will continue in just a minute.
You talk funny.
A few weeks ago on Composite, we interviewed Congresswoman Martha Griffith of Michigan, who introduced the Equal Rights Amendment into Congress. She predicts that it'll pass this year. We said at the end of that interview that there are a lot of people in Alabama who don't think so and who will fight it all the way. One of those is Kitty Rickenback, who's the Montgomery County chairman of the Alabama Stop ERA Committee. Was that right?
Right.
Why are you in favor of stopping the ERA movement?
Well, first of all, I think it was a detrimental thing that it would just harm the American family to no end.
Why?
It affects every single one of us. And I think that's the purpose of the pro-ERAs, is to ruin the American family life.
Why?
Why do I think that it will ruin it? Because...
Why do you think that's their purpose?
Well, because of the things that they're proposing. True that the amendment isn't very long and it doesn't say very much in so many words, but what I have found out that it's not exactly what it says, it's what it's going to do. And I have read the report that was in the Senate in Washington, and they asked questions back and forth, and these are constitutional expertise that answer these questions. They know exactly what it's going to be, and this is what's so bad about it.
Let me rephrase that question. Why do you think the pro-ERA people are out to destroy family life?
Well, I just don't really know why they're out to destroy it. I can't understand that myself.
But you're convinced that they are out to destroy the family?
Well, I certainly am, for the simple things that they want to do. They want to make the 18-year-old girls register for the draft. Now, if we're equal, if the boys and girls, or men and women, are equal, and that's what they want, I feel like I'm equal anyway. God made us different but complementary to each other. And we each have our separate roles in life.
But you're against registration for the draft or national service?
Yes, let us have a choice. If anybody wants to register for the draft, let them register for the draft.
Well,
why force them to at age 18? And so right along with those men, they have to do it. If you're equal, you're going to have to do it.
Well,
you're
as a
going to have
man,
to serve in the foxholes with them. You're going to have to use the same restrooms with them. There's be nothing separate, nothing different about it.
Well, men have to register for the draft.
Well, they can make women register for the draft.
And that's okay with you?
No, it's not really okay with me at all, because women cannot suffer the same type things that men can suffer. They're not strong as men. They cannot do the same things that men. So if these minority want to register for the draft, let them register for the draft.
The National Aeronautics and Space Administration has proved that women stand up better under physical and mental stress than men do. For example, they concluded that women might make better astronauts.
Well, that's just one phase of it, but that's not. Can you see 18, 19, 20-year-old girl in a foxhole with a man at a time when maybe she isn't feeling very good? Men don't, you know what I mean.
Okay. All right, let's move on from that to something like Social Security. Right now, men are discriminated against in Social Security.
No, they're not. They just recently, a man was, the law gave a man Social Security after his wife died.
That's not a very widespread phenomenon.
Well, true, it isn't widespread, but that will take care of itself in time. And why do we have to change the Constitution for it?
Well, do you think women have equal rights now?
Yes, I certainly do. I'm just real happy being a woman. I don't think I'm being discriminated against one bit.
Well, what are some of the other allegedly bad things that ERA would accomplish?
Well, they'll take all our legal rights away from us, our protection as far as working is concerned. And that was one of the points I used to bring out a whole lot, but they've kind of quieted down on that a little bit. It is not going to give us one more thing than we already have as far as employment, jobs, wages are concerned. That has been taken care of since 1964. True, maybe a long time ago that was a fact.
Well, women now across the country make far less in comparable jobs than do men.
No, they do not. They do not. Right in the state capitol right here, there's in one particular office, and it's one of the highest offices up there. They have 7 people in that office, 4 women and 3 men. And 2 of the women make more than the men do that are in that. That is not true.
Why specifically do you oppose the propositions, for example, to make debts equally responsible for the man and the woman? If they incur a debt and the woman leaves, why should the man be responsible for paying that debt?
Well, the reason I feel that we're both responsible per se, but if the woman isn't working and the man makes all the debts, how is she going to be responsible for his debts? But under the ERA, she will be. It's 50-50.
But under the present situation, regardless of what a man is making, and you say that men and women are now making equal amounts of money, the man is held responsible for the wife's debts. Is that right?
Yes,
is that
I
just?
think that, well, it is. He's supposed to provide for his wife, but
Where does
those
it say
laws
that?
will be gone. It says it in the Bible, for one thing.
Uh-huh, okay. Is it true that you're only interested in the protections that you've got now without any of the liabilities that would come along if you had ERA?
Well, maybe I'd say
In other
yes.
words, do you want your cake and to eat it too?
Well, I think that people are responsible. I mean, a woman is just as responsible as a man. I mean, she's not going to just let him take all the trouble. Look at the women that work now, that help out and do things. But I think a man should take care of his wife and family and support her. And if she wants to do, I think we need a choice. We want a choice. We don't want to have to go to work. And it's very possible that we might have to go to work.
Aren't you reading a lot more into the ERA than it actually says?
I don't think I am. I have gone down to the Supreme Court Library and read up on the case that they had in Washington. And from what I get out of that, it's
What
not
case
going to
is
be
that?
any guesswork. It was the hearing that they had in Washington on the ERA, the Senate hearing. And it's not a lot of guesswork. People think that we're putting in a lot of words, but I can't see that we are.
Mrs. Kitty Rickenback, who is chairman of the Montgomery County chapter of the Alabama Stop ERA Committee. As we said a few weeks ago when we talked to Martha Griffith, a lot of people are going to be against it, and so it turns out.
Why is that?
And don't forget Bernie.
Who?
Bernie Walters,
Never heard of him.
my second husband. I was married to him when Harry came along, and then Harry went away, and then you came along a long time after. Platonic marriage. That's what you and I've had, George, but that's all right.
Platonic? Under the willow tree that June?
What willow tree?
I don't know. What willow tree? Oh, I've been good to you, Mary, for all your carpet and your falling off in your old age, because I remember that willow tree. Muriel never knew about it. We were wicked.
If I thought you knew what you were talking about, I'd get mad. But I know you're just babbling. Babbling Bernie, that's you. Herbert used to say, how can you listen to him babble?
I'm Herbert.
If it makes you feel more secure, go on. Keep reminding yourself.
You call me Bernie.
Oh, sure, sure. And you never been to Chicago.
What?
And you've never been to Chicago? Oh,
And
I have so.
I have so. Went there when my daughter died.
Oh, well, I'm glad you admit it.
Of course I admit it. It's so. You're just trying to confuse me. Grace, Mary, Harry, George, Muriel.
You started a long time ago slipping. Only then you were more honest about it. Very touching. When we went to Florida and you gave me the tickets and you said, Grace, my mind's slipping. Take care of the tickets.
You're Muriel.
Yes, yes, lovey. I'm Muriel.
You referred to yourself as Grace.
Oh, very likely, very likely.
You said I gave you the tickets to Florida and said, Grace, my mind's slipping.
Well, it was.
I've never been to Florida.
Oh, let's not go into it. The pongee suit.
I never owned a pongee suit.
You said it was the same suit you wore when you married Helen. We had that long discussion about how ironic it was you were wearing the same suit to run away with me.
Who's Helen?
You were married to her, silly.
I was running away to Florida with you, and I was so old my mind was slipping, and I gave you the tickets?
Lovey, you're running a lot of things that happened at different times together now. Maybe you cut that out.
All right, now this is where we should
Yeah.
switch. But this is a good place, especially if you work up the anger.
Right, which I didn't do.
Yeah, and also we'd have a problem here in that don't know that she's gotten up. I mean, don't you know that he's gotten up, and don't see that she's gotten up,
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
right?
Oh, yes.
Plus the chairs
So
weren't
that-
set right in the beginning either.
Right.
You didn't
Yeah.
have enough room.
All right. So let's just go back to who's Helen? I was running away to Florida. No, you need a little more than that. Who's Helen? Start from who's Helen? You were married
Who's
to
Helen? Right.
Yeah. Who's Helen? You were married to a
Married
silly.
to itself. Okay.
Who's Helen?
You were married to her, silly.
I was running away to Florida with you, and I was so old my mind was slipping, and I gave you the tickets?
Lovey, you're running a lot of things that happened at different times together now. And then maybe you should just sit quietly.
No. Yeah. What I mean is, if you had come to this, as if you were talking to her, and then find it, and then look, and by now, you have gotten to here.
You can only be naked. You can't be more or less naked.
You didn't know Grace.
Mary, I didn't know Grace.
Naked?
Keep a civil tongue in your head.
I never saw you naked.
No, not likely to. What'd be the point? You couldn't do anything about it.
Oh, that's what you think.
You married me at 70 and you were through then, except for dreaming.
Old women forget.
You're lying.
That's wrong.
You're lying. We had some
Darn.
good goes. That's right. You're
You're
lying.
lying? That's right. We had some good goes together down by the beach.
You and I were never near a beach, and you were never near me in that way.
Old women forget the joys of the flesh.
Ken, how did dinner theaters originate?
Jerry, I think that, of course, one person told me it probably originated in England 200 or 300 years ago when they did some of the English plays in the old English pubs and served food. But basically, I think about 50 years ago there was a couple of them in New England that were summer theaters at a resort that brought the plays in and served them in the dining rooms and so forth. That, as far as we can determine, is the origin in the United States.
Well, what do you think has caused the great boom in them, particularly in the southeast and southwest over the past few years?
The weather, primarily, I think, in the southeast has been a factor in it starting, and I think there's just been a general increase in people's interest in live theater, and a lot of people went out to dinner, and it was just a natural thing that they would drift over to the dinner theater where there was entertainment and food at the same place with easy parking, and it has been a very growing thing in the last 5 or 6 years.
Could it have been a result of the fact that television was almost about to kill off live entertainment for a while?
I think that was a big factor in it, and also I think the trend away from the movies was another big thing too, that I think there's only about 15% of the movies being produced today that there were 15 or 20 years ago, and basically there's a need for entertainment, and dinner theaters kind of fill that need.
It doesn't seem, though, and I've been to several dinner theaters, and I have never had great food at a dinner theater, and I've never seen what you'd call great entertainment, premiere shows, that sort of thing. Is dinner theater basically a compromise?
Yeah, definitely so, Jerry. First of all, it has to have wide appeal, and it has to appeal to a large segment of the population. Consequently, the price has to be something that they can afford. You probably know a ticket to go to a New York performance can run as much as $25 a piece. There's no way that the average community would support something that costs that. So the idea of dinner theater is to bring a show in and serve a very modest meal, a simple buffet meal, and the price range from $6 to $10 that several thousand people in a community can afford and will be interested in coming to.
Colonel, what is your understanding as to the legality of reduction of DWI charges in city and circuit courts?
The Attorney General ruled several years ago that the charge of driving while intoxicated could not be reduced to a lesser offense. But this practice still continues in the state. We only get about 55 to 60% convictions on DWI arrests, and alcohol is a factor in 60% of the fatalities in this state.
Compared with other crimes, what would you say about the conclusiveness of scientific evidence of DWI?
Well, we have a device now that we think takes all the guesswork out of it. We have the PEI machine that tells us exactly how much alcohol a person has.
Would you then say that arrests made for DWI after having PEI tests are fairly conclusive evidence of guilt?
Yes, I would.
Then what do you think is the rationale for the reduction of DWI charges?
I don't know. They can't legally do it, but it's done throughout the state and has been for several years.
I have in my hands a Montgomery County Circuit Court arraignment in which practically every DWI charge on here, and there are hundreds, have been reduced to reckless driving, and the standard penalty appears to be a $200 fine. Would you agree with that as an adequate penalty?
Well, I think he should, if he's charged with driving while intoxicated and he's guilty, he should have to pay a fine. But what they do, they make it a lesser offense so they can keep the license and then put the $200 fine on the person.
Well, should they be allowed to keep their license?
No, sir. Should not.
Do you think that your department is doing an adequate job in keeping me and everybody else in Alabama safe on the streets?
I think the police officers in this state are making the arrests. DWI arrests are higher now than they've ever been. But the same problem exists. Only about 55% of the people arrested are being convicted.